Good evening, everybody. System Chalk here with the 59th episode of our first run through House of Light on YouTube, playing as the Archaeologist. I am also recording this on Robbie Burns Day, so happy belated Robbie Burns Day to those of you who celebrate. Let me see if I gave myself a to-do list. Doesn't look like I did. I know I've sort of had the... Oh, interesting. So I do see I have a Path and Pilgrim, and I actually see a couple of notes here saying Path and Pilgrim and Preliminal Meter, and I have absolutely no idea what I'm supposed to do with that. Okay, so I'm already leveling something up. Let's, I'm going to just let the timer run. I should maybe see if there's any memories I'm keeping. I am. So we'll let the timer run, and then we'll figure out what we're doing at the start of the day. I think I've long been threatening to properly sit down and work out what I want to do through the Tree of Wisdoms, but it's easier said than done. Okay, got another catwink. We are getting close to the end of spring, so oh yes, but we've got more than enough catwink. One idea that I've been kicking around on the stream playthrough, so this is the one on Twitch, the drawback that I have is that's one I've been doing since the beta, and what's happened there is I don't have a full team for the Lighthouse Institute, and at this point I've read all of the books and I've unlocked the whole house, so I basically have to wait for the arrivals. Now, one of the things that writing letters will allow me to do is actually push people ahead on the various incidents. So there's a side of me that's tempted to try and do something like that. I think it would make sense when I have a slightly more reliable way of getting those letters out, and certainly I have many more things to do on this playthrough, but it is something I'd like to keep in the back of my head moving forward. Now, we don't have any elements of the soul, so I'm not going to try and do anything with this Path and Pilgrim, but I should probably make a couple decisions before too long. I think the idea here was, so Preliminal Meter, Path and Pilgrim has Birdsong and Nyctodromy. Preliminal Meter had Illumination and Ithistry. So I think the idea here was that Preliminal Meter at best would have a 3. If I take a look at Birdsong, we've already committed a 2, and then Nyctodromy, I don't believe we are starting at... Nyctodromy, we are starting at 5. So yeah, there's a small argument to push Path and Pilgrim ahead. The truth is, like, if I were to commit it right now, right, I would get the extra core, and then, you know, there's no real problem there. I think the thing that would be nice is if I had an alternative. So I think if we do Rhyme and Remembrance, we'll get another Tryst in that case. So I've had another candidate that I'd say, okay, well, I'm locking this one in and then I'm moving Path and Pilgrim up. There's no major reason for me to argue one way or another. The slight argument for... Actually, sorry. I guess there's a slight argument for putting Path and Pilgrim in there because it gives me the core, which I have less of. But, I don't know, like, we'll have other things to commit to the Tree of Wisdoms before too long. Anyways, I'm going to have to decide if I want to handle that today. I do have something of a feeling that maybe I'm going to want to wait to see what the weather brings before I make a decision. I am slightly inclined towards leveling up, well, doing something with this lesson this turn, just because if we do wind up with Numa, I'm going to regret not having all of the elements of the soul that I can apply. But I'm just trying to see if there's something that compels me to sort of read one book or to perform a certain action over another. I decided to keep the foresight. Now, I don't think that changes anything for the preliminal meter or the path and pilgrim. I think that was just available. And then I suppose the other question here would be if I said we haven't decided for sure. The other alternative that I have here would be to level up strings and songs. Sky stories, and then serpents and venoms, furs and feathers, wolf stories, horns and ivories, and coil and chasm. I'm actually seeing fewer and fewer reasons to use this with Path and Pilgrim right now. So the reasoning that I have here is that right now, if I'm looking... So one of the arguments for leveling up the skill, the existing skill, is that it'll give me access to higher branches in the Tree of Wisdoms. And I think that's a fair one. But what I am contending with here is that with Path and Pilgrim right now, this gives me 3 rows and 2 scale. Moving that up will give me 3 scale. Well, I already have 5 from Stone Stories, so that's not a major argument. On the other hand, I could say, okay, well, we'll use Path and Pilgrim to improve the rows, bring that up to 4. Well, I mean, at least it's slightly better than Preliminal Meter, right? Preliminal Meter is primarily knock, but then that's also an argument for Inks of Power, which has the exact same combination. Although generally, I like to move stuff like the Path and Pilgrim higher. I mean, there's a slight argument for the Rose side, I guess. All right, I think I just talked myself into Path and Pilgrim because I for some reason thought Preliminal Meter was primarily Rose. All right, now I don't think there's any memories that... There's no weather memories that will help me with Path and Pilgrim. So I think I can handle... Yeah, it's not that hard for me to get to scale or to Rose memories. The bigger question is how I want to spend the rest of the day. I don't like wasting this time, but I think I'm gonna let the I'm gonna let the timer go forward, and then we'll see what the weather brings. Okay, rain. Soft rain brings life. The biggest argument for this would probably be to bring Mrs. Kill in. So, if I recall correctly, the minor is scale, forge, and moon. Okay, so let's maybe start by taking a look at the... Okay, so yeah, the Heart-Haunted Room would be a good example of one. Okay, actually, so Heart-Haunted Room, Dim Hall... Okay, this is getting a little clearer now. So if we take Mrs. Kill with her 2 Grail... So then we can use the Arab in that case, so that'll be good for 2, which brings us up to 4. So we can use the Scales as well. That's good for 1, so that takes us up to 5. And then in that case, we could use the weather. Now, I should mention, this isn't all that different from from using satisfaction either. I should maybe keep that in mind, actually. So I'll sketch this out. So that brings us up to 7. We're 1 short of where we need on this. Now, I think the answer to that would be a Witching to Sane. Unless I've got something clever with Grail sitting in here that I forgot about. I guess the pairs Give Grail. Okay. So the other possibility that I see here is if we have a Grail text that I'm just shy of being able to read. So I'm going to take a minute just to examine that. Our strongest Grail right now is Desires and Dissolutions, if I'm not mistaken. So we toss Arab on that. Okay, yeah, so we're one short normally. This is actually quite tempting to try. The only thing is that if I'm worried about Numa, giving myself 2 more rhyme and or resurgences and emergences, rather, it's a little bit counter to that goal. However, the other rationale is that I can use it to uplift. Well, I can use it to uplift 1. Okay. So if I'm completely honest, this is not a compelling reason for me to read this particular book. Or maybe I try and do... You know what? I'm going to get greedy. Okay, so here's what I will do instead. I'm going to bring in Mrs. Kill. Now we're going to use the core for that. So speak with Mrs. Kill. Mrs. Kill likes conversations about beginnings. Her husband prefers to talk about endings. A shilling will buy her help for a day. A day's work is a night's dreaming. Now, while we're doing that, I can't see myself using the shaft, so we're going to use this to get the Mrs. Kill money back. There's not much work on offer in Brandcrude, but I can find 6 worth of odd jobs. And what I would be tempted to do right now is to use the Tryst and the Fete with Crowcross Sands and the Moor to just get some more items, particularly because we're going to be conducting a salon before too long. But I think in this case, I do actually want to try and make the most of the day. So what we're going to do here, I'm going to try and open up another room for sure. I'm going to try and get Mrs. Kill to get me the memories that I need to level things up. And then on top of that, I'm actually going to try and attempt to read on Thursley's Ivories and Lovelies. And so for that, I'm actually going to read one of the Satisfaction texts. So for that, we'll do Orchid Transfigurations of Birth. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. All right, I've carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. This will complete once dawn has come. So I'm not going to try and generate the memories for leveling up Path and Pilgrim yet. I'm going to wait for Mrs. Kill to potentially give me those memories. We don't really need anything from the room. It's more just the fact that we have an opportunity to open it up. So, here we go. The midwife's assistant. As somber as autumn, as kind as autumn, she also likes her beer. So, I'm going to be a little careful in terms of the order in which I do these things. So, I want to bring in the spice scales first. Proffer a tool. I can lend my assistant something to help, increasing their abilities. So I want to use that first because I'd like to have both Arab available in time for reading on Thursley's Ivories and Lovelies. So the tension that I have right now is that if I take too long to start reading this book, then I'm going to have these hanging lessons, and I'm not going to be able to do anything with them. On the other hand, if I'm too premature, then I potentially wind up in a situation where I wish I had something like an Arab available when I've already sort of used it up. Now the good news here is that on Thursley's Ivories and Lovelies, technically a core will do as well. But in this case, it's better not to tempt fate. So, and I'm keeping the health aside just so I have the option. How are we doing for water? Oh yeah, plenty. In fact, I don't see any reason why we can't go restoring that right now. Yeah, the health the core, all of these things are, they're ready for the garden, so I don't want to miss those opportunities too. Now, it's a bit of a shame to use the pears right now, but I think that's the best bet that I have with my Grail. Most of the other Grail things I have, I don't quite want to give up, so, and I have more than one. So in this case, I also have the option, of course, of talking with Mrs. Kill, but in this case, we'll just proffer something to eat, or offer something to eat. Proffer to tool, we offer something to eat. In this case, again, no risk to this. It's something we already wanted to do, and I'm not committing myself to tying up elements of the soul that I need. Alright, The Orchid Transfigurations, A Birth, the second volume of a compilation of quasi-Rosicrucian allegories, supposedly by Robert Flood. This is in the original Latin. Flood, or pseudo-Flood, suggests alignments between the alchemical tradition of Rubidoux and the older Grail traditions, through the Pine Knight's quest for the Cinnabar Cup. Seek the cup in the birthing bed, the Pine Knight is told. The midwife at the birthing bed, to his amazement, is the Mountain Mother. In a fit of awe, he both gelds and flays himself. The vigilant storm bursts joyfully from the remains. So that's going to be what we read the book with. So here I will use one of my Arab, although I'll use it at the right desk. So this is one that we knew we were going to use, and of course this is why we used the spice scales right away, because we don't want to tie that up unnecessarily. And then here we get to use the memory, same as the rain. However, we've improved our chances as far as the opportunities go. So we have the Arab, we have the core, we have an assistant, we have the weather. There's a number of different things that we can use to sort of tilt this to our advantage. So, Grail, frustration or temptation? Perhaps you've provided Grail, but not enough to match Mystery Grail. If you're lucky, you might still succeed. As I used to say in my youth, the day is done and so am I, but I've earned my pay. So we'll restore the shaft. In this case, we can make a little bit more money. And like I said, we will move on to using these elements of the soul to get the memories that I need for Path and Pilgrim and such. But we don't need to quite commit them yet until we have a clearer picture of how our readings are going to go. Again, the ideal here is that the Trist, the Health, the Core are used for, and ideally the Fet, although something's going to need to level up Path and Pilgrim. These are going to be used to get more stuff for salons, and then the Arab Metal Shapt Whist will be used for either leveling up skills or generating memories or related. Okay, so now I need to start making some choices about Mrs. Kill. So just a reminder in terms of what I wanted for her. We start with 2. The Arab will get us 2, the scales will get us 1, the memory will get us 2, and the pairs will get us 1. So I don't want to quite give up the memory yet, and I don't quite want to give up the element of the soul yet. So now is a good time for me to talk with Mrs. Kill and generate one of those memories. We technically get 2 of those. Although maybe I should just wait for the 1. I figure losing the 10 seconds isn't all that bad because I can, I'm gaining the information in terms of what I need to commit for the day. I should also say too, when I'm talking about things to do with my elements of the soul, clearly using Trist to make more Catwink is also an option, but I think maybe we're good with that for now. Right, lots of Forge and Winter. Or well, lots of Forge, we also have a little Winter. Here we'll wait it out. I deserved a little quiet time, so this is a nice to have. I suppose in a pinch I can get another glass of water, but that doesn't feel like the best way to use use that core. I think we've got other things we can do with it. Well, then again, it's spring, so I don't have that much that I can get from the gardens. Okay, this is a tricky one for us. So we have Ubi Sunt. Now, I don't believe I know which one that gives me, but it was Duende that gave us Grail. Epiphany, wow. Okay, so yeah, we needed the extra effort soul. I also think something just fell in the other room, but I've got 10 minutes. I think it can wait. Okay, so we're going to use the core in this case. It would be sort of nice to see what the the different moods give, but I'm willing to guess the element of the soul comes first. I'm just making a note here of the elements of the soul on the odd chance that doesn't come up. So, we will now talk with Mrs. Kill about the Arab. So, my pride will find an echo in theirs. Better now. So, using up the Arab like this is a little inconvenient because I do still need to level all these things up, but yeah, it wants the element of the soul right away. So we'll put the core in, increase the relevant aspects by adding an element of the soul card. So we're good. We'll have a pretty clear idea in terms of what we need with elements of the soul to get everything leveled up, and then we'll probably deploy our elements of the soul accordingly. Okay, on Thursley's Ivories and Lovelies, Fiona Ayrshire recounts her visits and dreams to the Red Church in the Mansis and her conversations with the names of the Grail. An hour, Ayrshire explains, may usually only have 7 names, but since the Thursley's Ivories and Lovelies, who usually comprise the Red Grail's names, are constantly attempting to devour one another in the names of other hours, that number fluctuates. Lovelies, the freshest of the Grail's names, usually adopt the characteristics of whatever they devour, be it an ivory, a thirstly, or occasionally an entirely different kind of name. A practical application of the principle is described. The arts of resurgences and emergences, in the presence of a sufficiently potent Grail aspect, can be used to feed a pale Mommet to its successor doll, creating something notably more avid. So, Epiphany, it was for the man of letters to record these epiphanies with extreme care, seeing that they themselves are the most delicate and evanescent of moments. And Ubi Sunt, where are my kindred? Where is the giver of treasure? Where are the benches to bear us? Joys of the hall to bring us together. Okay, so this gets us an impulse and 2 resurgences and emergences. So at this point, all of the pieces, we kind of have all the pieces on the board. This should be the impulse shelf. And the question now is, how do we distribute all of these various elements? So first of all, I was talking about the resurgences and emergences. So we're going to use that to level up Great Signs and Great Scars. I'm actually going to put this on my to-do list because I don't know if I'm going to have time for all of it. So now the good news about that one is I can probably use the rain there. So from Great Signs and Great Scars, we'll also level up Path and Pilgrim. Now that's going to need 2, so and the other question I have is with Pentiment. Yeah, so Pentiments and Precursors has already been assigned. I guess the question would be, where would I want to put Great Signs and Great Scars? We have the option for Horomachistry, but we also have Hushery. And I think my Horomachistry list is pretty long already, so there's an interesting question if this is going to be going into Hushery. This might actually be something that I want to spend some time leveling up. If you can give me a second here, did put down a spreadsheet just in terms of where some of these things, like what elements of the soul they give me. So Hushery gives me Tryst and Whist. Probably should have known that. And then Horomachistry is Metal and Fet. Okay. I can definitely see myself putting two... You know what? Let's put the two into Great Signs and Great Scars. I don't think I need to get too clever with that. Okay, so Path and Pilgrim needs... I have created one problem for myself, which is I really don't have that many elements of the soul relevant to the task. Okay, so let's throw the... I guess I have to throw the core at Great Signs and Great... Or, no, actually, what I can do here, I can bring back the Shapt, and then I can just use another element of the soul to earn money. Okay, so for starters... There's always more to learn. Improve the skill to level 2. The other thing that I'll take a look at, so it's the Whist and the Metal right now that I'd sort of like to use for other purposes. And I suppose I need to set aside one of the health for Path and Pilgrim, or the Fet for that matter. I guess it's roughly equivalent. Actually, no, hang on. So yeah, it's the Whist and the Metal that I generate memories with. I guess the question I have is, do I want to push... How hard do I want to push on getting these things leveled up? I think... Let's start by seeing what Mrs. Kill gives me. Because we also need... we need a Grail memory from her now. Okay, we are actually getting a little close to the end of the day, so I might want to just say... throw everything into the leveling that we need. The skill is now level 2. Its power aspects have also increased. So we've got a couple that are going to be going up to level 3. So let's go... we'll move you two down. Okay. As I used to say in my youth, the day is done and so am I, but I've earned my pay. So we'll restore the shop. That's going to be to pick up the... Sorry, that's going to be to boost Great Signs and Great Scars. I want to try and come up with a somewhat more delicate path through all these levels. It is spring and the landlady has served me a slice of her stargazy pie with the pilchard heads poking cheekily through the hot crust. So let's see what the memory is first. Okay, the fear. Now that helps me with Path and Pilgrim, so that's a nice start. So we'll keep talking with Mrs. Kill, and at this point, here's what I think I'm going to do. So let's use the Whist to... if I can get a pattern, that would be ideal. So the alternative would be a confounding parable for Path and Pilgrim. Yeah, okay, so this is one for Great Signs and Great Scars. Let's do Intimations of Skin because that gives me Beguiling Melodies. And we know Mrs. Kill can't double that up. So if she gives me a satisfaction, so much the better, but I can also use the Beguiling Melodies to bring her to the level that she needs. I should actually also probably get a Confounding Parable at this point. So we'll use a Tryst for that because I can't use all of these for fishing right now. I should have decided to do that earlier, but okay, let's do... I can never remember where I left these off. I'll start with Locksmith's Dream again. Yeah, I lost my nerve a little bit, so I'm sure there's a bit of inefficiency in here, but let's see how it turns out. Okay, so the Solace doesn't give us anything we need. We'll talk with her one more time because we've got 30 seconds. And at that point, the Beguiling Melody goes straight to Mrs. Kill. I think we may even use her to open the room immediately afterwards. Yeah, so that's the hurry up sound. All right. So advice on containment. Thyrza Blake discusses ways to keep wood things out of trouble and Mantis things in it. Thyrza is irritatingly light on specifics, insisting above all that the duties of an adept are the duties of a host, and that a conjured spirit should be kept in as luxurious a vessel as possible. Thyrza notes the similarities between the lantern-long habit of scrying, returning to the physical world despite their absence of a body by entering a mirror or light, and Pomander's techniques for confining Mantis-long to mirrors. She wonders whether Pomander himself might be lured to visit Hush House if provided with a sufficiently alluring scrying. And the Intimations of Skin, fiendishly complex, weirdly distorted illustrations of Congress and anatomy by the haunted visionary painter Niels Fredrik Malsker. Malsker illuminates the evolutions of the names of the Grail with unfortunate clarity. It seems that a lovely who consumes an ivory becomes an ivory, a lovely who consumes a thirstly becomes a thirstly, a lovely who consumes a name of another hour might take its place. In the penultimate illustration, a lovely grapples with a fungoid knot that can only be a name of the crowned growth. The lovely's mouth and other portals gape wide, and the growth name is already partially engulfed, but it seems that Malsker couldn't bring himself to illustrate the result, and the final illustration is only a scrawled, bloated obscurity. And better now, so I don't think we're going to use the Sweet Bones again, but let's see what happens in 0.3 seconds. Satisfaction, perfect. Okay. So we'll give her the it doesn't really matter the order in which this happens, but I can discuss a memory with my assistant. So again, we get our choice between Heart Haunted Room and Dim Hall. I'm actually slightly tempted to open up the Dim Hall, even though the Heart Haunted room might be more practical. And it's just simply because the Heart Haunted Room has Heart, Grail, and Moon, and so we have more opportunities. Of course, I'm at time, so I should probably wrap this all up. So, now that we have what we need for Great Signs and Great Scars, we will apply the Shapt. We will apply Satisfaction, Pattern, and Resurgences and Emergences. I'm no expert, but I'm no dabbler either. And I believe for Path and Pilgrim, we already have the Confounding Parable on its way. So, with that in mind, let's go to Crowcross Sands for beachcombing. What has the sea seeded today? I'll give up one of the health for Path and Pilgrim, so then that will allow me to go for a walk on the moor with my Fett. The gorse is bright on the land's nape. So it's now a core and a health that I have to work with. Now for the tryst, I'll do the good old-fashioned cat wink. Maybe a little bit of a disappointment for the day's use, but... And my options for... I mean, one potentially is just to go get some grapes and get some water. So for spring we've got moth orchid, or cat's claw. Let's actually go for cat's claw in this case. Okay, I'm actually pretty happy with how today turned out. And I think I'll just let the rest of this play out in the next episode. So we will still need to level up Path and Pilgrim. That'll happen after the end of the day. We'll rest on one of these memories. I'm slightly tempted to keep the Solace, actually, but we'll see what mood takes me. And then Mrs. Kill will open up the Dim Hall again, just because it's a little bit easier than... It's a little bit easier to open this one. Essentially, we need to wait for Hail if we want to use the Edge. But all that will be happening on Wednesday's episode. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.